In 1981, Reed Nicholson began selling tires out of an old barn in Mineral Bluff. Little did he know that he had just laid the groundwork for the most trusted names in automotive services in the Blue Ridge area. In 1997, Nicholson Tire Center became what it is today, holding the same values of faith, family, and great customer service. 2 locations to serve you, and the Blue Ridge location is currently expanding to offer fast service and the largest U-Haul provider in Georgia. Nicholson Tire Center, Blue Ridge, and Mineral Bluff.
Ritz Furniture specializes in quality furniture for affordable prices. Our extensive inventory highlights top brands and provides everything you could ever want. You can count on us for kitchen, dining, bedroom, and living room furniture, no matter what the style is you have in mind. Stop in with your family and look at our amazing selection to find the perfect fit for your home. Contact us today to see how we can make a difference in your home.
Hello and welcome into Inside Smoky Mountain Conference presented by Team FYN Sports. Jake West, Brandon Stevens, as always. This would be where we would start with, who won the week, who lost the week, but it's pretty clear with only one team playing last week and them coming away with a victory. Hayesville won the week, and everybody that didn't get to play due to the circumstances of the hurricane and everything that's happened, Murphy was lucky, closer down this way towards Georgia, Clay County, Graham County, Cherokee, Bryson City kind of got hit a little bit harder than most. I think Bryson City's football team spent some time cleaning up, but everybody's getting geared up to play, Brandon, and it just speaks to the resiliency of this mountain area.
Yeah, and I think I traveled around quite a bit yesterday from Swain County's Memorial Stadium out to Murphy, went to the Hill, went to Hayesville, took a peek at some of these and took a peek over at Andrews too to see what was happening. But yeah, everybody looks really good. And it's as far as like their fields, their schools, communities. I think from time to time, especially now when you get closer out to east, the closer you get to Asheville, things get a little more messed up, and connectivity has been shaky. So communications, I think, in talking to the coaches this week, Tim Hawkins, Joseph Watson, and Chad McClure, folks like that, one of the biggest issues, especially in this area, has been being able to communicate with your team, keep them moving. Don't just sit in the house and be idle. And it was good that they were able to get back into school. Schools were able to operate. So, and the one word, the one thing, and I think you'll hear this when we hear Chad McClure's comments, we're just damn lucky to be where we are and to be able to do what we do, because this is so much part of our heritage. People can argue that, there's life's more than football, but it's huge here in the mountains, and this is what we want to see and what we celebrate. So I'm glad that we can do it, but hearts and prayers and best wishes go out to like some folks in all the Henderson County schools closed indefinitely. Can't play anymore. Can't do the things that you enjoy, that, maybe run for the state championship. And there's some good teams over there. Buncombe County. You can go on and on. Transylvania County. We talked to some of you may remember Lisa Fletcher, who was principal at Murphy and Andrews and was superintendent over at Transylvania County. So there's some things that are they're just getting power back. So yeah, very lucky. And on a Friday night, there was also some questions about should we play and conserve gas, that sort of thing. So yeah, and I think like Western Carolina University is going to play Saturday, but they're just saying no fans. We're just going to play the game, get some media in here, and to conserve. So there's some efforts being made because it's a little tough out here.
Yeah, definitely. I know our friends, Coach Poston and the Dade County Wolverines are having a drive right now. They're going to bring over a couple truckloads to Bryson City, a couple truckloads of non-perishables, water, things like that. If you go over to Coach Poston's Twitter page, you'll see all the fundraising and things they're doing for the Bryson City area, because I think they were the most impacted in our SMC country, if you will. But shout out to everybody who's helping, everyone get through this difficult time. And like you said, Brandon, we are damn lucky that it didn't hit like it was supposed to in our area. But yeah, if you've got a couple extra dollars this week, I know of a good place that it can go, and that's out toward the Asheville area, Boone. I think Appalachian State University is they're still reeling. They're off for the next few weeks. No sports or anything like that. So yeah, just
only thing I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
The only thing I'm going to add to that is that I know that there have been some efforts when you've got young, strong boys that can handle some. I know there are some of the football teams are going to load up some supplies, maybe take it over somewhere. So yeah, that's a wonderful thing too. That hey, yeah, we want to play the football games. We want to enjoy the pride of being a Black Knight, a Bulldog, Yellow Jack, all the way back Cherokee Braves. But they're also taking some time to those that are able and capable to get out. But I know that some teams are organizing that, and I applaud that to not just just sitting back and just letting things roll out, but they're taking positive and progressive actions to help others, and that's a good thing.
Definitely. Let's get into it. So let's not talk about the games coming up, but instead let's talk about the first half of the season as a whole. Non-conference play. Brandon, which team has surprised you the most? That can be in a good way or a bad way. What team has surprised you the most through their play through 5 games?
Well, I think that you have to look at the schedule. I think the difficulty in schedule. One team that has surprised me in just knowing how strong they are. I was, when Robbinsville takes a couple whippings, and like they don't ever beat, like the way that they have. I think that's been one of the surprising teams. I think depending on where you are and who you're listening, who's talking to you, you could say, well, that could be almost any team. Because there are some teams that have just been crushed by injuries. And I think that's a big thematic thing that goes through, and you're having to rely on some younger players. So that really lifts your ideas of who's surprising. So, yeah, I think Robbinsville because I had them kind of coming out thinking that they might make the turn on a couple of games, and they didn't. On the other hand, I think with Andrews, they've been a good team. I would probably slide in between Robbinsville and Andrews, but the scales weigh a little bit heavier on Andrews, I think, because they've had some good opponents. They've had some close games, some things like especially playing like Hayesville, and really I think that's going to lead into some of the other questions you're going to ask. So I'm going to lean a little more toward Andrews being the more surprising teams this season for various reasons.
Yeah, I agree. That was going to be my pick as well. 4-1 could easily be 5-0 if they. 3-1. I think they got last because they didn't play the game against the South Carolina team last week for homecoming. But they could easily be undefeated if they're able to get 2 feet down or a foot down in the end zone on that 2-point conversion against Mitchell. They could have went to Mitchell County and stolen a win. I think they're 9th in RPI right now. Murphy's 3rd. Go to our socials. You'll see the latest RPI rankings that we posted. But, yeah, definitely Andrews for me. This is a team that did not win a single conference football game last year. So to have the turnaround that they've had, now I know that this is just non-conference play, and Mitchell is definitely the best team they've played so far. The Hayesville win was a good one. But, I mean, season 1 is over. Andrews is the most surprising team to me. In the first part of the season, entering into season 2, everything could turn on its head. You mentioned Robbinsville being a surprising team. On the flip side of that they haven't performed as well as you thought they would. But it's time to put up and shift gears and head into conference season. But sticking with the theme here, what player has surprised you the most? We're not talking about the Cameron Clems and Trey Graves and the Eli Aguilars and the stud guys for their teams, but who's surprised you the most that's kind of been under the radar so far this year?
Well, let me start out this way, and I think that when you really break that question down, like you say, it's not necessarily the marquee players that that they've been performing well, they've got experience, they're veteran players, but somebody who don't get the love that they need, get the touches, they break out and have some good games. I could quickly, from the last game that they played, the Murphy Bulldogs played Greenville, South Carolina. It's the Hurricanes, and in that game, I think one of the things with that old Delaware wing T formation that is usually set, you don't ever get to do any kind of tight end plays. So I think that probably Kenyon Nichols had a really good game last that couple of weeks ago. That's kind of been a breakout. But let me shift that and go back. So the previous 4 games or so, or 4 weeks before that, we hadn't seen anything. But when Murphy decided to unleash and get him the ball, he did some really good stuff. And I'm hoping that will recur. If you're going to run that play and you're going to run, you could really utilize the tight end. But across the season and how things have happened, I have to say, hands down, Luke Smith is a very surprising player. He does very well, and he's, and so I think his coaches, I think the fans here in Cherokee look and say, he's probably the best player. And that's not, casting aspersion to the other brave players
Sure.
that are there in line, but he's a go-to guy. And so for that, when we were going through, we thought maybe this would be like, with all the talent that kind of left last year and the year before, it seems like Cherokee just kind of gets a drain every year. But these guys rebuilt with some good players, and I think they've also, part of that, Luke's performance is good coaching, good leadership all the way around. So, but I have to probably Luke Smith, Kenyon Nichols.
Yeah, 2 good picks. Piggybacking off of your Murphy pick, I think J'Anthony Gooden in the trenches for the Bulldogs has been a huge, a key piece for them. Going both ways because of some injuries. Just a huge kid. Some of the best footwork I've ever seen out of a lineman, even though we've had some Power 4 recruits come out of this area that have been linemen, and Tyler West and Yusuf Mugerbill, some of those guys. But I mean, this guy's right up there with them, if you ask me. I think he will, if he is able to, put some things together and keep building and keep growing his knowledge of the game of football, then I think the sky's the limit for this kid. He has really, really impressed me. And then also, I think, Grady Lewis was the lineman of the year, preseason lineman of the year, but he's had to, because of injuries, move back into a linebacker spot. He's playing running back. He's doing everything that he can to will Swain County to their first win, which they haven't been able to, hasn't come to fruition yet. They play Andrews for Andrews homecoming this Friday in Valleytown. But I think Grady Lewis has been surprising. I didn't know that he had the kind of speed in him that he's got. I've seen him running away from guys, seen him running over guys. And then at linebacker, I mean, we know he's a force on defense, but his offensive prowess has been a surprise for me so far this year.
Well, I think you're probably right, and I think some of the players echo what you're saying too, about especially about Grady Lewis. And so I went to watch the Swain Tuscola game a couple of weeks ago, and in behind me there were some players from Murphy, there were players from Robbinsville, there were players from Andrews, and there might have been a Yellow Jacket in the nest up there, but the ones that I heard from were the players that would come down to the fence, and shoot the breeze with me. They were all impressed with Grady Lewis is doing this, and in a roundabout way they were like, go Grady, go. So it was you're getting a little love from some of your opponents, Grady.
What about piggybacking off of who surprised you the most? Who's your non-conference midseason player of the year? Who played their best ball? Who played the best ball in non-conference play? You've got guys just looking at the leaderboard. Cadence Leatherwood is leading in tackles by a mile. You've got Jonathan Saylor in Cherokee, 650 passing yards, leading the conference. Cameron Clem, nearly 500 rushing yards. Right behind him, Brandon Santiago. Behind him, Eli Aguilar. Behind him, Trey Graves. All those guys over 400 yards. Aguilar and Clem and Luke Smith up there leading in touchdowns. So you've got a ton of kids to pick from. Shiloh Woodson, 3 interceptions, playing really good defensive back. Will Brown leads in sacks. Who's your midseason player of the year?
I think obviously if you're going to mention some of these players that we mentioned, the surprise, you have to include them in your thoughts. The Luke Smith, the Eli Aguilars, the Kenyon Nichols that we've already mentioned coming forward, and obviously like Cameron Clem. What I like about him is that, and I talked to him about this yesterday, and part of his comments that we may see here in a little while are, all right, how's the team doing at this point in the season? Because I asked him to kind of give a report card of what he thought about how Murphy football was moving. And so to get to the point, his yardage was kind of doing this, but then all of a sudden it's just had like an uptick. I would say basically he's going to be your paycheck, your franchise, your go-to guy, for Murphy, obviously for the next couple of years. Eli Aguilar, Luke Smith, I mean, both of them, again, they're in that kind of same pattern that Cameron Clem is, and seeing, I think though, when I started thinking about that and started really analyzing and digesting, part of this too is, okay, you can score the points, you get the big sexy runs and, the rushes and that sort of thing, but who keeps the points off the board? And I think you really illuminated that, and I was really trying to scour back through who kept points off the board, who had snot bubbles on Friday night, who did a lot of good work. And I think Cadence Leatherwood is definitely in that because again, you talk to old school coaches like Gary Thompson, Dockery over at Hayesville, or some of these other folks, and they'll tell you it's like, all right, yeah, offense wins games, but defense will, take you to Chapel Hill or Raleigh or in December. And so the idea here is I like your idea of Cadence Leatherwood has done a tremendous job, and it's a little his season also is a little bit unique because in the beginning there was a thought that there would be a set of running backs. He had to jump back and put on a running back number. So he's a utility player, and I think because of that, maybe he doesn't. He might not have 2,000 yards rushing at the end of the season, and 25 touchdowns and on I can go. But it's that little stuff that props up the team, and he's got a good attitude too. That he doesn't really care who gets the yards, he just wants to win the ball game, and I like that.
Yeah, I think that's a good pick. I mean, the amount of tackles he's had so far this year, and just if you watch a Murphy football game, I mean, he's a game breaker. He can do things on defense, turn the game on its head. He flies around everywhere, and can really change things for the Dogs. But I'd say it's either got to be him if you're picking a defensive guy, an offensive guy. You know, it could be Cameron Clem, but it also could be Eli Aguilar. Aguilar has played very well. He's the only guy in the conference averaging over 100 yards on the ground, 5.5 yards a carry, 9 touchdowns, no fumbles. Through 4 games, he has 428 yards. Through 5 games, Clem has 468 yards. So he's 1 game less, 40 yards short. So Aguilar, I mean, like we said, Andrews, you know, surprising to me that they're in the spot that they are. Would not have picked that preseason, but, you know, they seem like they're a force. They're a real gritty team. They've got gritty players, and that's led by Eli Aguilar and that big senior class that they have. So, I mean, he's really impressed me in the game I watched in person against Hayesville. You know, he gave them, I mean, it's a 7-2 football game. There was not a lot of sparks out on the football field, but when they were sparks, they came from Aguilar, whether that be offensively or defensively. He's just been an outstanding player through 5 weeks of play. And let's go off of this midseason talk, piggyback off the Andrews talk, and let's talk about Andrews versus Swain, homecoming in Valleytown Friday night. How do you see this football game playing out? Swain comes in beat down, battered, haven't won a game, but you know, sometimes all you've got to see is the little asterisk by the name of the team you're playing that denotes a conference game, and things change really quick.
So, again, I think that with good power that's coming from behind Eli Aguilar, you're going to have to watch him if you're a Swain County Maroon Devil. You're going to have to get some, you know, put some pressure on Everett Tatham, and you know, get off your heels and just jump into the backfield. You don't see probably as much passing, you know, really from this team. Tatham has got a couple of touchdown passes this season, but you know, Eli, Everett, Rattler, they're the ones making the yards, and this is obviously a run game, which runs into the big question of how can Swain County is because work against Andrews in a roundabout way. I think that the whole momentum, the whole potential lies behind Andrews in this particular game, just based on what we've seen so far and how Swain County has been hurt by injuries. They're having to play some younger folks. This is going to be to me, this is going to be like a breakout game. If I weren't watching the Murphy Hayesville game, I'd either probably be at this game, the Andrews Swain game, or definitely go to the Cherokee Robbinsville football game. But this one I think is going to be interesting because it's teams that have either historically been struggling like Andrews, or it's a team that has really hit some hard times with Swain County. So let's see if the old proverb that all the coaches and all the players say, well, you know, Swain County's down, or Andrews or Hayesville or Cherokee, whoever's not performing as well, but they always perform really well when it comes conference time. And we'll see if that proverb works. On the other hand, the big, the big assignment would be for Swain County to really pep up the line. The last couple of games, I think it's been a struggle for them. You watch that Swain Tuscola game, and they're coming up to the line not really enthused. It's hard. It's been tough for this team. And you've got some people like Insay Ufert and folks across the line that are trying to do a lot of things. I think that this one's going to be this one could be close. If Swain County knows now, you've got to start winning some football games. You've got to start dotting the I's and the lowercase J's and crossing the T's. And part of their problem has been a thematic theme with a lot of other teams in the Smoky Mountain Conference of taking care of the football. And that last football game, we saw 2 or 3 fumbles at the very beginning of the game, which resulted in scores for Tuscola. You've got to cut that out. And part of that is just being inexperienced, and probably the more experienced side of this thing, the way that things have been working, because you have steady chemistry in behind Andrews. I'm thinking that this could be either a really big night for Andrews if they play all their cards right, and we see the historic play that Swain comes out. But if Swain can turn some things around, this could be very competitive. So this is probably one of the more difficult games to analyze. But because they're in Andrews, because Andrews has kind of got the hot hand, they've got a little more momentum behind them. This could be, I think, easily like a 24-7, 24-10 Andrews football game.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like everything does line up in Andrew's favor heading into this one. But, I mean, like you said, the first week of conference is so hard to pick because you don't know who's going to flip that switch.
Right.
I mean, thinking about the Robbinsville-Cherokee game, that one's hard. Hayesville and Murphy always play tight football games. I don't know. They're so hard to pick. I do think, Andrews should win this football game. They are 8.5-point favorites, according to the computer. And I do think that they cover that. I think they win maybe 28-14, something like that. It's homecoming. But like we said in the prelude to the show, Swain County's got a lot to play for right now. They've seen their community get decimated by the hurricane. They were the hardest hit program in our area, for sure. But it's sometimes it takes something like that takes a hold of you, and you play out of this world. So you never know what's going to happen on Friday night. But I do think Andrews should win this football game.
Well, I'll put it this way. I'm not picking Andrews to get beat by 1,000 points.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it seems like it lines up. This should definitely be an Andrews win, all things considered. But what about over at the Big Oaks? Cherokee Braves coming to Graham County. That's another one that's hard to pick. These two teams. Up and down, up and down. Robbinsville seems like they are putting things together, though, and Cherokee likes to play it fast and loose with the football. So, and I'm
well. I think number one, Jake. I think this is one of those games like you and I were at NC State in Raleigh about a month or so ago, and one of the things I noticed, like out in the parking lot, you got these big RVs like that are almost like trailway buses and stuff like that. I think I would rent or buy one of those and just go up there and hang out and tailgate and get ready to enjoy this game, because I think it's going to be one of those type things. Now, getting down, talking with Coach Tim Hawkins this week, and this rolls out. It's like, all right, this is there's a lot of drama. There always is with this team, and why? Because you've got that Cherokee Indian connection between cousins from Snowbird and those from Big Cove and Wolftown and Birdtown and all the other places. And plus, this is also Fair Week. Coach Hawkins, as I mentioned in one of the last shows, he was like, going to keep my guys healthy because they're going to be playing stickball this week. And I was showing some of the coaches around the conference, like, this is what stickball is. And it's we won't go into all that again. But number one, I think these two teams, one is in a kind of a rebuilding, fortifying, trying to find that chemistry that they had with Cutler Adams, work their way through a really tough schedule. They haven't seen, the sun hasn't shined on that dog's rear in a while. So they're hungry for a win, and Cherokee is ready to, just go clobber Robbinsville in Robbinsville. And you've got Cherokee, who has built back up and got some really good players, and they're making some headway. And I think they're one of their last games, which was I think it's New Faith Christian Academy. uh, that was good. They needed the momentum, and we were talking about this like with the Murphy folks. Okay, you win like 65-20, and you're playing a softer team that's homeschooled and that sort of thing. But really, any momentum you can see where you have breakout plays. Oh, I'm sorry, Mount Zion Christian was the team, but when you had a good game like that, so Cherokee's got the momentum going into it. You've got Luke Smith continuing to perform, Sailor, Santiago, all those folks, and then Roman Jones has also sprouted up and really turned into a good leader. And I think that's one of the things that probably in just talking with some of the Robbinsville players a week or so ago, it's like, we could always turn to Cutler and he was telling us what to do. And that's been one of the things that's probably, if I can dial that in, get the line fortified. This could be a really interesting football game. X out the drama, that sort of thing. Just get to the X's and O's rather than the Jimmies and the Joes. You can just get down and say it's going to be a tough football game to orchestrate. And I think they'll probably go off script a little bit to throw some kinks, because one of the coaches mentioned this week is like, we're getting ready to go into the conference. I know what Swain's going to do. I know what Cherokee's going to do. I know what Murphy's going to do, because I've played him for years and years and years. Credit that to Chad McClure, but it's like, what it breaks down to is like, what's the attitude of your players, and how can you get them motivated and get in and execute, take care of the ball. And that's been one of the things that Tim Hawkins has been really kind of harping on, is like, we could have either played one game better, or we could have won a game when you X out some of the mistakes that are made and taking care of the ball, no fumbles, and that's been right through quite a few teams. But I'll stop there for a second, because again, you can get really mired down into some of the drama of this game. But when it comes right down to it, can we see the Bryce Adams and Roman Jones, Darian Ledbetter show really take off?
Yeah, and you said get down to the X's and O's. Sometimes it is sometimes it is about your Jimmies and your Joes, and I think Robbinsville's got those guys. I don't see them losing this game. Quarterbacked by Bryce Adams, hasn't had the best start to the season, but they've played a very difficult schedule.
Yeah.
I just think with the way their defense is, and the athletes that they have, and like I said, the way Cherokee likes to play fast and loose with the football, you can't turn it over against Robbinsville and expect to win. And I've yet to see Cherokee play a game where they do not turn it over. So I think Robbinsville wins this one, and I think it's close in the first half. Robbinsville comes out the second half and really puts it away. I do think it is in favor of Cherokee that this game did get moved and was not played last week in the rain, because of the way Cherokee likes to throw the football. And if Cherokee is able to exploit the secondary of Robbinsville, which we saw Tryon do a couple weeks ago, and we saw Tryon put up 35 points or whatever it was in that overtime game. But this could be a higher scoring game if Cherokee holds on to the football. If not, it's going to get out of hand, and it could be 35-14, something like that. But if Cherokee holds on to the ball, and their quarterback and Luke Smith and Santiago and those guys are clicking, this could come all the way down to the wire, and it could be an instant classic at the Big Oaks.
Yeah, and I really think obviously if you wanted to really hold my hand to the fire and make me say, okay, here, what's the score going to be, or what's the prediction? I think you have to look at it and say, all right, Robbinsville has really the momentum. You play in Big Oaks. It's I hear people all over the Smoky Mountain Conference saying there are two places I hate to play. One is I hate to play in Swain County at Memorial Stadium, and I hate to play at under the Big Oaks. There's just that mystique about those places, and that's one of the reasons I guess they haven't built a new stadium, because it's just pretty cool. But so the momentum, I think, is behind the Robbinsville Black Knights. And again, I think depending on how you perform and looking at the historic trends of how you come into ball games, well, this is a different one. I'm going to say 28-14 Robbinsville. And now, and I hope somewhere, after making some other predictions, probably I'll have to eat a little crow or run from Roman Jones when they score a few more, or they don't do as well, whatnot. So anyhow, but good luck to both those teams, because I think regardless, trying to ride the fence a little bit on this one, I think this is going to be a good football game.
Yeah, I do too. Moving into our last game of the week, before we talk about it, Brandon, let's let Coach Chad McClure talk about it. He's got the Murphy Bulldogs coming to Hayesville for the first conference game for both of these teams.
Coach McClure, tell us, how is the Hayesville Yellow Jackets doing so far this season?
Well, we're not where we want to be. Started the season 0-4, played a really tough schedule. Played, Asheville School, played Andrews, Pisgah, and a really improved Georgia Force team. So right now we're not where we want to be, but we're going to keep working. I feel like that tough non-conference schedule has prepared us to play this tough Smoky Mountain Conference schedule.
Well, with the Concord Christian game that you played, you clicked out some points there. Tell us about that game.
We did. That was good for our kids. We were able to establish a running game, control the line of scrimmage, and score some points finally, right, which was good.
Now you're getting ready to start out conference. Tough one, Murphy.
Absolutely.
This one's always a fun one to take on.
Right.
Tell us about the Murphy game.
It's always a big game for our communities. Murphy's always a really, really good team. They're well coached. Coach Watson does a great job over there. We know we've got our hands full. So we know it's big for both communities. It's probably been 2 decades since we beat Murphy. So it's been a long time. Kids are still working. Efforts there. Just gotta tell them to keep trusting the process.
Coach, anything else about this week or getting ready to go into the conference? You guys still having fun, I assume?
Absolutely. I told the kids yesterday, we're blessed. There's a lot of people east of us that aren't getting to do what we're getting to do. I think last week we were the only team that got to play a game. There's a lot of people hurting right now. They've lost loved ones and got extensive damage, don't have anything, and I just keep reminding them we're blessed, take advantage of these opportunities, and pray for those people out there and just enjoy what you're doing.
Go Yellow Jackets.
Go Jackets.
Good to hear from Coach McClure. He always keeps things in perspective. He's a great guy. He's definitely a guy that I would want coaching my kids if they were out there on the gridiron. But he mentioned their past struggles against Murphy. But yes, they haven't been able to knock them off, but it's always close. He always schemes it up well, at least in the past few years.
When did he come into coaching? And the reason I ask that is I didn't exactly know. He's not been at the helm for 30 years.
No, I'll look up exactly when.
Well, while you're doing that, the reason I say that is let's look. I just want to look at history, and really, it's like a lot of coaches say. Well, you can look back to 1920, 24 when, and what they did then and what they're doing now could be totally different. But just the historical on this for the last 17 years, there's been, I think it's what I'm seeing in my records, 17 straight wins.
2019-2020 season looks like his first year.
Okay, so 2020, 2019, coming in right around pandemic. So you do see a different trend. And when I was going through business school, and the statisticians could say, all right, well, if you want to look at something right here, you can see a trend and say, okay, the world's coming to an end. But when you stretch it out, it's like, no, this is just one little freak occurrence. But the one thing I noticed, like in the data we have, leading up to that point, Murphy had a winning streak, obviously in that 17 years, but the average was about 40 points in the win. So, you have like 69-6, 56-20, 49-13, and I can go on and on down the line and list every score. But when you get up to his coaching era, it changes. Yeah, so if he came in 2020, Hayesville lost 54-21. Next year in 21, when we were playing that modified that season, it was a 56-14. But hey, hold on a second. 2022, 2023, same score, 21-14. So Murphy doesn't get away. So really, there's something that's going on. So if the good coaching and the good work's coming in behind, and we start to see this historical trend of where Hayesville's getting closer, and they have been getting close to their opponent. Sometimes it's not turning the corner and getting the win that they need, but in the overall, I think that's one feather in Coach McClure's cap. So if I had a surprise coach or a midseason coach of the year, I'd say Coach McClure, you're doing your best. You've got a lot of players hurt, but the trends keep working out, and you're still playing some close ball games. Take out the Pisgah game where you got crushed, but you had some people, a lot of people out for that game.
Yeah.
But I say that he still plays closely. even in the 7-2 Andrews game. So let's move forward, and that's just a kudo to Coach McClure, I think.
Yeah, agreed. Before we make our picks, let's hear from Murphy running back Cameron Clem.
Cameron, tell us about how the rushing game has worked for you. You're developing and building each week.
Well, first off, I'd like to give a lot of credit to my O-line. Developed chemistry with them, and we've become best friends, and we know what each other's going to do on every play, and it's just worked out pretty good. And this off season, I decided to put in a lot of work, and I've gotten bigger and stronger and faster, and decided to put that into my game as well.
We finished up the non-conference part of the schedule. How was that?
Well, the non-conference part of the schedule, we always schedule teams that we know are going to be a little tougher, just so we can go into the conference play pretty prepared.
And what are you thinking about going into the conference?
Well, this is the best part of the year for me. It's always pretty fun. I like playing these teams because I've known them all my life, and we don't really like each other that much.
And you start with, as far as like being on the field.
Yeah.
But what about Hayesville this week?
Well, Hayesville's probably the most exciting game for me. I've had this week circled on my calendar since week 1. Just going to go out there and have fun, and
Go Bulldogs.
the Dogs.
Just going to go have fun.
Yeah, Cameron Clem, he mentioned he definitely looks bigger. He put on some weight, put on some muscle this offseason, didn't lose any speed. He's going to give Hayesville fits on Friday night, and I'm sure that's in the Bulldogs' plan. But quickly, Brandon, what do you think about this football game? Obviously, we mentioned how they've played close the past few years. This kind of lines up as the same as Andrews versus Swain, where Murphy should win this football game.
Yeah, agreed. Let's just look down why that is. First of all, Hayesville, ordinarily you would probably ask me a question, who's the big loser, who's the big winner for this week? And I probably have to pick Hayesville in the way that, of course, they were the only one that played really last week, but Concord Christian, 37-16, they've got a little more pep in their step, and they've got a little more confidence, and you need that momentum to get behind you. But really, this year, injuries and taking some folks, you take Tate Roberts out of the football game. You've got people with broken bones. You've got, and I'd have to say that the schedule isn't like just like you just played Titans every week, but your schedule has been a little bit tougher with Hayesville this year. I mean, they didn't expect the work coming out of Georgia Force and the close games that you play with Andrews and that sort of thing. But little more challenging schedule, some injuries, but the bigger thing, Jake, is making sure that offensively you get to the line, you get there with enthusiasm, you execute the plays, and you take care of the ball. Um, the You have to really every week. Hayesville coming up and doing the work they do. They have good solid defense. The one thing I look at too is that Hayesville is not winning the games that they want, but with the exception of like the Pisgah game, I'd have to say that the defense is keeping points off the board as much as they can, and I think that just trying to look back through. Well, Asheville School, that was a runaway game, 49-7, but 7-2, 7-6 Georgia Force, and then of course they put up some points and even kept Concord Christian down to 16. So have to applaud their defense. This is a younger team, and I think sometimes people say, it doesn't matter younger, but it takes some time to develop the wherewithal to play sometimes in these varsity football games, college football games, professional football games. Bringing the rookies in. So I think they've had to work and do that. But otherwise, Murphy Bulldogs, they're looking to build on what Cameron Clem has done. You've got some other people who are getting a little more exercise back into the game. Jonah Hedden, as far as the runners. The fellow on the other side I like is Will Shore. Man, he had a really good Greenville game. His about 120, 130 yards, rushing at least. You got to see there's some new players into the mix, and so I think that game and trying to build on what you have there. I think you might see some other things happen, but also. I think that what they're trying to do is, again, eliminate the mistakes, get the penalties down. I can almost guarantee you with Murphy, there's going to be at least 4 holding calls that'll be set before it will. Let's go ahead and mark us back 40 yards. That can be said though. But again, I like what you also pointed out. You've got one of the leading tacklers, Cadence Leatherwood. It's going to be hard to get past him, and you're just everybody. So the pass. This should be a good Murphy football game to get you into to the conference. Now, are you going to ask like what's the score? I'd have to say like this could be easily like a 42-10 football game in favor of Murphy.
I think so too. I think we've got 28-point spread here in this one, and I think Murphy covers. That's just going off of what we've seen so far this year. Like we've mentioned a billion times, you never know what teams are going to be like in conference play. But just like I said with Andrews and Swain, Andrews should win that football game against Swain. Murphy should win this football game against Hayesville. And I think 35-7, I think is what I said earlier this week. And that's what I'm still going to go with, even though it is in Hayesville. Tough place to play, but I think, you heard Cameron Clem. The Bulldogs seem fired up to play this game against Hayesville.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that I take away from what he said was I have some fun. And I think that's one of the things, if you're Swain, you've got a lot of injuries, you're rebuilding in Hayesville, Andrews, Cherokee, Murphy, all these teams, if the element of fun is not in this, then
sure.
Why are you playing the game? And
sure.
And I think that's one thing that you don't often hear, and I like to hear that from players that I'm having fun, but one of the reasons you're having fun is that you're winning and you're doing well, but still it's even when you're like 0-and or 1-and, you can still go out there and have some fun, and I think that turns you into a giant killer and a prospect killer for other teams that have that momentum going to it. But anyhow, you got to have fun, Jake.
Sure. And that's good advice for everyone this weekend. Use Friday night, use tomorrow night as an escape. Go watch a football game, get out, support these kids. Get away from the turn off the news, get away from everything that's happening in the world, and just watch some football, watch some kids, get out there and have fun, and have fun, eat some trash concession stand food, and enjoy a Friday night. But Brandon, as always, thank you. Any closing thoughts here?
Yeah, I think I just echo on what you said a little bit. I don't want to hear any more debates. I want to hear debate about, who's going to win the conference rather than who's going to be president. And just for a moment, there's some wreckage and devastation, but got to remember, one of the things that brings our spirit, and I mentioned this in the beginning of the show, is that what brings our spirit up is actually the sport. We talk about music and everything else, but this is our stuff. This is our jam in the mountains. No, I think wherever you go and whatever you do, obviously be safe. Be sure you have cash. Be sure you have gas, and watch out for bear that cross the road.
Yeah. All right, that's gonna do it for us, Brandon. Thank you.
See you.